Hello and welcome to TOD Rolls Dice, where we're going to take a look at the Deathrattle Army set and the 3 previews that we have for the Soulblight Gravelords. Yes, I am still playing catch up. Honestly, I'm not sure this video is going to get many views anyway. The pre-order is up. I think it went up at the weekend. It sold out pretty quickly. It was probably a low quantity, to be honest, because the AOS stuff has not been selling as well army box wise. But I thought we'd have a look anyway because I'm interested, and if any of you guys are, obviously let me know if you got your pre-orders in, if you were lucky enough to grab one of these boxes in the comments, or if you're just generally looking forward to running what you already have. Yeah, let me know. Let's jump into this one. So we have 3 articles. First we're going to go over what's actually in the army set, then we have a little bit of a preview, and we'll finish up with another look at Cado and his cohort as they're coming in a new plastic box. We don't have a date for those yet, but hopefully they'll be out soonish. Yeah, looking forward to that one. But let's jump straight in with the Deathrattle Army set. This skeleton legion has a bone to pick with the mortal realms. Nagash has but one desire: to turn the mortal realms into a lifeless necrotopia. Necrotopia? He wants to kill the world, a perfect expression of his self-given right to rule. Enacting this grand plan is proving tricky, however. Gods and monsters have their own claims to the realms and the people in them, and even his own lieutenants and underlings are self-obsessed and backstabbing. If only all of his servants could be as reliable and unchanging as those of the Barrow kingdoms. These legions of lifeless skeletons are in thrall to the supreme lord of the undead, thanks ancient kings who once pledged their subject souls for immortality. At least, of a sort. So that's the box, a whole new mix of skelly models, some cavalry, leader, standard bearers, warriors. Yeah, they're nice, very nice sculpts. I think they've done... I don't know if they needed them because I don't remember the old Soulblight skeleton stuff looking bad. I think it was fairly well done, to be honest. But yeah, it's a nice refresh. I don't know if it's needed, but it is a nice refresh. Now enthralled to the Soulblight Gravelords, they rise in the forthcoming Deathrattle Army set, which is available to pre-order, was available to pre-order now. FLGSs may have copies, you never know, and you may be able to pick one up when it actually releases later this month. Stores may have physical copies, but they tend to go pretty quickly. But much remains the same for this army of all-powerful vampires in the ranks of the undead they wield, but they have learned a few tricks despite Nagash's love of stasis. Cursed sepulchres are the hottest new real estate in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and any self-respecting vampire lord or white king wouldn't be seen dead for a second time, battling anywhere lacking such fonts of necromantic power. Luckily, ancient burial sites are everywhere in the mortal realms, and you can mark them with your cursed sepulchres. You can set one up in the deploy faction terrain step of the deployment phase, and can deploy up to 2 more after both armies are ranked up and ready to fight. So we have seen these were previewed a little while ago. Beautiful looking box. Once per battle army deployment phase ancient burial sites. Effect: if there is a friendly cursed sepulture on the battlefield, you can set up to 2 additional cursed sepultures on the battlefield. The first must be set up more than 3 inches from all units, objectives and other terrain features. The second must be set up wholly outside enemy territory and more than 3 inches from all units, objectives and other terrain features. Designers note the original Cursed Sepulture is set up in Step 1 of the deployment phase using the Deploy Faction Terrain ability. This ability allows you to set up a second and third such terrain features and is used in Step 3 of the deployment phase after armies have been deployed. So they act as conduits for manifestations and rallying points for the Rising Dead. Units which start the game in the grave and deploy within 6 inches, which is usually 9 inches away from enemy restriction. Not that such restriction bothers the indefatigable Barrow Knights. These Knights of the King are fated to ride with their liege long into their unending afterlife, their mere presence extending a ward 5 up to nearby mounted heroes. Nice. While Barrow Guard provide the same for footsloggers. Even when shattered by forces, they are cursed to rise once more, reforming their ranks. With crit mortal and charge +1 damage on their barrow lances, this extra resilience makes them an even greater threat. Okay, this stuff's sounding pretty good. So the Barrow Knights, passive Knights of the King, while any friendly Deathrattle cavalry heroes are within this unit's combat range, both this unit and those friendly units have a 5-up ward. Nice. And at the end of any turn, curse to rise once more. Effect, you can return one slain model to this unit. Ooh, that sounds pretty good. The White King on Skeletal Steed is the ideal commander for these Reverend Riders, benefiting greatly from the improved ward save so that he can get into the thick of combat. A single cut from his King's Relic Blade inflicts an Ancient Barrow curse upon its target, withering armor and flesh alike, and subtracting 1 from their save rolls for the rest of the battle. So the White King on Skeletal Steed's melee weapons, King's Relic Weapon, +1 damage on the charge, crit mortal, 5 attacks, hits on 4 ups, wounds on 3 ups, 1 rend, 2 damage, and passive Ancient Barrow Curse effect. If an attack made with this unit's King's Relic Weapon scores a critical hit on top of the mortal damage, they also become cursed for the rest of the battle, and you subtract 1 from save rolls for cursed units. Designers note multiple enemy units can be cursed by this ability, but the same unit cannot become cursed more than once. That's a bit horrible. That's really strong, really nice. It fits the white vibe that they're going with on this. There's plenty more to unearth in Battletome Soulblight Gravelords, and we've got more articles coming up, including an in-depth how to play article from one of our contributors. There's maybe 4 articles then. So the Soulblight Gravelord armies can choose to put a number of their units in the grave ahead of the battle, as long as units on the battlefield outnumber those in the ground. So they have a pseudo deep strike, which means they can just jump out of the grave, and yeah, that's gross. Completely fitting. I love how themey and narrative this stuff is. These guys sound really cool. The Knights just bring back a unit, they do extra damage on the charge and crit mortals, certainly for the King, and the King can curse, which means that on a crit he makes the unit he's fighting save worse for the rest of the battle, and they get a 5-up ward if they're near their Knights, the cavalry unit, and I think they said the Guard did it for foot slogging heroes as well. Lots of protection and things going on. Very sort of knightly protection, how you'd think men-at-arms would work around their liege lords and kings and things. Yeah, they sound nice. That little snippets that we've got sounds really good as well. Very nice. How about we jump over to the next article, and we're going to take a look at Blood Knights and the Army of Renown for this battle tome. The Blood Knights ride again with a lethal new Army of Renown. The deathless warriors of the Barrow Kingdoms are the immortal chaff of the Soulblight Gravelords, and the stars of the new Deathrattle Army set. Yet despite the cruel might of their lords and masters, they are simply pawns in a much larger game. Battletome Soulblight Gravelords gives you all sorts of ways to construct an army of the unliving. The vampires are given special attention, with a powerful new hero to supercharge your Castellai cavalry. No longer will your crimson caparisoned Blood Knights ride without oversight, as the vampire lord on Nightmare Steed bucks imperilously at their head. With a cry of "For glory, for blood," the Crimson Cavalier hammers into enemy ranks, re-rolling their charge rolls and urging along a unit of Blood Knights beside them. So Vampire Lord, that's that guy in the middle there, really cool looking model. Well, you can see it there as well with a different head. Yeah. So Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed, reaction, you declared a charge ability for this unit. You can do For Glory, for Blood. Effect, you can re-roll the charge roll for that charge ability. Then, before the charge move is made, you can pick a friendly Blood Knights unit that is not in combat, is wholly within 12 inches of this unit, and has not used a charge ability this turn to be the target. If this unit charges, then immediately after the charge ability used by this unit has been resolved, the target can immediately use the charge ability even if it is not your charge phase. In addition, you can reroll charge rolls for the target this phase, so lots of movement shenanigans. This reaction can trigger off the counter charge command with a free rerolling, making it more reliable. That's really strong. I love these counter abilities, but that counter charge, wow, that pairs really well. With the free roll making it more reliable, no hole in the enemy line will go unexploited. Your Vampire Lord can command their minions to strike at the heart, increasing rend by 1, bad news for those at the business end. So any combat phase, strike at the heart, declare Pick a friendly Blood Knights unit that charged this turn and is wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. Doesn't have to be off the back of their previous reaction. You can just pick anyone within 12 inches regardless, as long as they've charged. Effect: add 1 to the rend characteristic of that unit's Templar weapons for the rest of the turn. Quite nice. This is the model I love. That vampire dragon is stunning, and it's huge. You might be thinking this potent combo is good enough to hang a whole army off, which is exactly what the Knights of the Crimson Keep provides. This army of renown has a limited roster: Prince Vordrai, Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed, Blood Knights, and Revenant Draconith. The purity of the Castelli dynasty must be maintained. Crimson Keep itself fights for you. Up to half of your units may be deployed off the table, arriving in a battlefield edge as they thunder out from a quarter unseen. Nice. If any units are kept back in reserve from the Crimson Keep in the third battle round, you may carve a bloody path for free. This is your unique command ability. It allows a unit of Blood Knights engaged in combat to use this charge ability even if they've already charged that turn. Double charge? That's nice. Carnage ensues as you trample through enemy units within the Riders of Ruin passive before wheeling around and starting the killing anew. So what have we got here? Once per battle army, any movement phase for from a quarter unseen. Declare you cannot use this ability in the first battle round. Pick each friendly unit that is in the Crimson Keep to be the targets. Effect: set up each target wholly within 9 inches of the battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. If you use this ability in the third or subsequent battle round, do not spend any command points when using the Carve a Bloody Path command this turn. And Carve a Bloody Path is your charge phase, normally 1 command point unless you get it free from the previous action. Declare, pick a friendly Blood Knights unit that is in combat to use this ability. Effect: that unit can use a charge ability even though it is in combat and even if it already used a charged ability this turn. Lots of shenanigans going on there as well. They link quite nicely. Honestly, Carve a Bloody Path for 1 command point probably seems pretty good. This is one of 2 Army of Renowns in Battle Tome Soulblight Gravelords. On Friday, our expert contributor will discuss both in more detail along with the rest of the battle tome. And next we're going to look at Cado, Ezechiar and the other regiments of renown, because I'm excited to see more of what he's going to be doing this edition. So they sound pretty strong, and again a fast moving, hard hitting mounted unit for AOS. Mounted units seem to be where it's at the minute. Like, there's so much that you can do. I quite like this new edition anyway, but mounted stuff just feels, I don't know, it feels weighty, like solid units. And they're continuing this trend with both the Deathrattle Army Box and their Knights, but also the Blood Knights here as well. So this is cool. This is all shaping up to be quite interesting. Now let's go see what Cado's got for us. Cado, Ezechiar and the Beast of Castle Sternieste bear their fangs. There are many notable vampires in the mortal realms, from the almighty Mortarchs of Night, Blood and Delusion to Prince Vordrai and the pallid paladins of the Crimson Keep. Cado Ezechiar is unique among them, a tragic figure seeking revenge against chaos for destroying his kingdom and killing his family. And though he suffers the Soulblight curse, he only fights with the forces of death when their goals align. But once you clap eyes on his regiment of renown, you're going to find those goals in frequent and enthusiastic alignment. The Blades of the Hollow King comprises 3 powerful individuals: Cado himself, the ferocious vampire duelist Sisendra, and Aurelius. The last of these is a powerful death mage and agent to Neferata, sent to ensure Cado stays on the relatively straight and narrow in his quest for penance. And you can see them there taking on some Tzeentchian cultists. Completely tracks. I'm currently reading the 2nd book, and yeah, there's a lot of Tzeentchi stuff going on there so far. I'm very early in, but still, it's Tzeentchi. They operate as a unit, with Cado and Sisendra more than a match for almost anything that stands before him. Fitting, he is a vampire, or they are vampires. The Hollow King can use one of his soul rings to call upon his confidant Solia, the tutor, in the combat phase, either to gain a 5-up ward or the crit mortal effect. Choices, I like it. It's such a cool model now, especially with Solia like spiraling round him. So cool. So Blades of the Hollow King melee weapons. The Ezechiar Greatsword is crit auto wound with 5 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, rend 2, damage 2. Nice. And Sisendra's Twin Blades is crit mortal, 8 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, 1 rend, 1 damage. It's not quite as great, but still, a lot of attacks. And hitting wound on 3s, very nice. Any combat phase, Solia the Tutor, declare this unit can use this ability when its Cado Ezechiar is on the battlefield. So you can do it any combat phase that Cado's in. Effect, pick one of the following to apply for the rest of the turn. This unit gains a 5-up ward, or this unit's Ezechiar Greatsword has crit mortal. I can't... crit mortal could be nice, but I kinda like a 5-up ward. It depends entirely what you're going into. I'm gonna lean more towards the 5-up ward on that one. Aurelius can choose to cast a second spell or to reroll 1 dice while casting. This will augment Cado's signature spell, the fittingly named Retribution or Salvation, which either deals D3 mortal damage or subtracts 1 from the wound rolls made against his undead minions. So your hero phase, Retribution or Salvation, declare this unit can cast this spell when its Cado Ezechiar is on the battlefield. Pick a visible unit within 12 inches of this unit to be the target, then make a casting roll of 2d6, and on a 7 it goes off. Effect, if the target is an enemy unit, inflict D3 mortal damage on it. If the target is a friendly Deathrattle or Deadwalkers unit, subtract 1 from wound rolls from combat attacks that target that unit for the rest of the turn. Nice bit of damage mitigation there as well. That's nice. Cado might not have the wanton bloodthirst of his fellow vampires, but he's more than happy to fight alongside the Flesh-Eater Courts, Nighthaunt, and Osiark Bone Reapers, especially if there's a lead that brings him closer to justice. I have always quite liked the Osiark Bone Reapers. I think they're really cool models. I'm waiting to see what comes with their battle tome. I think that's probably how I'd run him. Yeah. And I loved their interactions in the first book as well, so that's probably why. Okay, Cado sounds pretty good. Quite a nice little unit of 3 heroes. The 2nd Regiment of Renown is a hulking undead abomination known as the Beast of Castle Sternieste, a particularly fierce revenant draconith. Enslaved to the will of Manfred von Karsten, it has been given free will by its lord to stalk the battlegrounds of his allies, and this is an incredible model. You can see it there, there's just so much going on. This was one of my favourite reveals. I think it was LVO, wasn't it? So a regiment comprising just a single unit, it is empowered by its master's necromantic talents, a deathless monstrosity that can heal 3 in the controlling player's hero phase. Nice. Its Red Ruin ability allows it to extricate itself from tricky situations, not without grabbing a quick bite first, and retreating to the skies before making a loathsome descent back into combat. You can court the beast for the Flesh-Eater Courts, Nighthaunt, and Osiark Bone Reapers. Kind of expected on that one. So the Beast of Castle Sternieste. Once per turn, army, your hero phase, Deathless Monstrosity, effect, heal 3 this unit. Just a nice solid heal. And Revenant Draconith, once per turn, army, end of any turn, Red Ruin, declare, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Effect, roll a d3. On a 2-up, resolve the following effects. Inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. Heal X, where X is the amount equal to the roll, so more healing. And this unit can be removed from the battlefield and set up in reserve high above the battlefield. This thing is going to be horrible. Probably expensive, but horrible. And keywords rampage there. So there'll be a rundown of the Soulblight Gravelords from their expert contributor. It says tomorrow, and the box is already up for pre-order. So regiments of renown discussed in this article will follow at a later date. So we're probably looking at a few weeks before these are actually out. I mean, Cado's great, but this thing is going to be chewing through all kinds of stuff. Depends on, I was going to say it depends on his wound profile, but does it? Because every one of your hero phases you can heal 3, and once per army turn, at the end of any turn, it can just, if you get a roll, if you roll more than 2 on a d6, it can heal, inflict damage on a unit it's in combat with, and just disappear and strike back later. It's gonna be expensive, but oh boy, is that not exactly what you want this model to do? That's really cool. I like that. So there is one more article. We may as well have a quick skim through. So I'm not going to go through all of this article, but I am just going to point it out, and this will be linked in the description below. So this is a how to play Soulblight Gravelords, if you want to get some more of an idea on how they actually play on the tabletop instead of the previews we've had. This comes from the AOS coach, who is on YouTube. He has a great YouTube channel, covers all sorts of AOS stuff, obviously is in the name. Very much focusing on the more competitive stuff. If that's what you're into, definitely check them out. I'll also link the channel. I've watched it a few times. They go over some really interesting stuff. They have some cool guests on. They quite often talk about all the new releases and things. If you want useful information on AOS and certainly the competitive scene, definitely check them out. It's all linked in the description below. So like I say, I'm not going to run through all of this, but this does touch on all the powerful stuff, the faction terrain, obviously talking about Nagash, Armies of Renown, Knights of the Crimson Keep, which we touched on earlier. So yeah, it goes through not everything, but it gives you an overview of what's probably going to be pretty nice to run in Soulblight Gravelords. Definitely check them out, and if you're interested in the article, it is linked as well, so check that out as well. I have to say, I'm impressed, and I think the thing that impressed me the most from what little we've seen is these 2 regiments of Renown. So I love Cado as a character. I think certainly the first book, as I say, I've just started the second book, but so far it's pretty good. He's a really interesting, complex anti-hero kind of character, and that's the kind of thing that I love. And who doesn't want to run around with a giant zombie dragon? So I may even start an Ossiarch Bone Reaper's army just to run these units. That's how cool I think they are. We'll see what the Bone Reapers have. We don't know when their battle tome is out. That's further down the line, so don't expect me to be playing with any of this stuff anytime soon. But this definitely sings to what I want. But the other stuff, like the Deathrattle Cavalry and the Blood Knights, cavalry in general just sounds really strong. So I'm interested to see how this changes the current setup of the tournament stuff and the meta, and also how people are interacting with Soulblight Gravelords. Every new battle tome adds an extra layer of something to the armies that don't have one, and it should be shaking up metas and things. You should be seeing transitions and certain units becoming stronger. Hopefully not overpowered, but I'm interested to see what this will actually do when it's fully released and all these units are available for people to run however they want. But let me know what stood out for you in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.